Welcome to the Powering Unique You podcast. Here, we create encouraging conversations to help you accelerate your career, expand your unique potential, and become a better leader.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, my friend. Today, tuning in on this show, Powering Unique You. My name is Jana Masik, and I am welcoming you. Welcome to this episode. Welcome to this conversation. And my friend, please tell me, how are you doing today? It's a beginning of a new week. It's a brand new day, brand new opportunity. Tell me where you're tuning from, how things are going on in your life, and whether you're on the live show right now with me or you're on the replay. I do send you good vibes. I send you good energy. I send you my prayers and my best wishes. And I want to just say that I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful for this opportunity and for this platform and have a conversation with you today. And I will take a minute to just take a deep breath. My friend, take a deep breath with me. And just notice your body. Notice your head, your shoulders, your neck, your chin, your ears. Notice your body. Notice the back, how much tension you have in your back. Notice your belly, your torsos, your legs, your hands, your knees and your toes. Notice your body with me today. And just see where the tension is. I have some tension in my back, right there in my shoulders and my lower back and the kind of middle back. I guess it's all from carrying that baby around. She's almost 6 months now. She's growing up very fast. But the reason why I want to pause and invite you to notice your body, because I feel we've been living in such a just pressing circumstances, pressing stress, fear, just so much anxiety, unknown. Everything's just flipped upside down and seemed to be like there's no light in the tunnel to going back to normal and what this normal is and what the new normal is and so many uncertainties. And the reason why I feel is important because there is struggle. If you're struggling, my friend, raise your hand and just inventory yourself. Are you struggling? Are you having difficulties? Or inventory and look at your checkout and notice your family, your friends, those that are around you. Today is a little bit of more heavier, so to speak, conversation that I hope is important and needed. And if you find this conversation needed and valuable, please share it. Today's conversation is really about addiction, right? When you hear addiction, what comes to your mind? And there's addiction with drugs, alcohol, tobacco. There is addiction for me. There's some addictions that I have identified that I'll share too on this podcast. So today is all about mechanics of addiction, what this means to be an addiction, how to recognize it, and then how to pave out the road for yourself out of personal hell, because any addiction can bring you and create that hell in your life or in life of your loved ones. And today is really, really important. Person that I find is the best to speak about on this topic is my guest. He struggled with addiction himself a long time ago in his early years, and he was facing a prison, and then he received help and escaped that and found the mission to help families and help individuals to focus how to turn those situations from tragic to hopeful, and that he went through that himself. In the 18 years, he completed his drug rehabilitation story. He educated 100,000 youth on dangers of drug abuse and helped thousands of people with drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And I don't want to wait too long. I want to invite a wonderful, amazing gentleman, Bobby Newman here. Hello, Bobby.
Hi. Hello there. Thank you.
Yes, Bobby, you have a very, very inspiring story. And I feel today we do need hope. And I love that your mission is to bring hope and to bring encouragement to people and to say it is possible. Even though in the darkest times and the hopeless moments where you feel powerless, there is hope. So maybe share a little bit of like a big aha moments for you as you look back on your journey, where you were, how did you recognize you needed to reach out for help, and what really helped you to move forward toward that new, different reality in your life?
I can actually kind of define that. I've looked back at timelines in my life, and I remember being in high school, and I was a senior in high school, and I was sitting there in class one day thinking about, okay, where am I going to be in the year 2000? And I was 17. I graduated, not early, but young for my age. I was one of the youngest in my class. I barely made the threshold. I actually wished I would have been a year older. But anyway, I was, in the year 2000, I thought, where am I going to be in life in the year 2000? And, and I really had no path. I had no purpose. I had no goal. I was like, okay, I was taking one day at a time. I was just taking, and my focus in life wasn't necessarily the most positive, wasn't on positive goals. It was more along the lines of partying and having a good time and being a kid. So needless to say, by the time the year 2000 rolled around, I was unfortunately, I had accomplished some things along the way, but I kept failing and unfortunately become addicted to drugs. And anyway, I was looking at a significant amount of time in a federal prison, and I was on probation, and I thought, oh, okay. And I ended up in rehab. And I thought, oh, okay, well, this is not what I planned when I was in high school, with no plan or purpose in high school. Was I going to be here in 2000? Unfortunately, I had family and friends, or primarily family, and I had a few friends that were trying to encourage me to get some help and get redirected. But I had family that were behind the scenes because I just couldn't make it. I was kind of forced into treatment. People say, oh, people, have to want to get help. Well, the truth is that there's certain tactics that you use to get somebody's willingness to get help. But I had all three of those things happen to me, but it took the federal judicial system to say, look, you're either going to go to, fortunately, they gave me the opportunity to go to rehab. And so that's how it ended up for me. But I also at the core of that knew I needed help. And I was struggling. I didn't know what to do. I was just in a state of confusion. I didn't know the way out. So I was forced into a program that my sister had found for me. And I went for it. I thought, if I'm going to go to a program, I'll go to that one. Because at the core of it, I did want help. And as I was unraveling the snowball of problems that I had in life, along the way, while I was in the program, I realized I had the aha moment of, oh, wow, I'm actually not going to go back to that lifestyle. I knew the moment it happened, I knew I was never going back. But it took some doing. I was probably on the program for about 2 months before that happened.
So what was, Bobby, what was that change? What was that, sometimes it's like a revelation or awareness that really made, a switch for you, a turn for you?
I had experienced the program that I went to had three components to it. And the first was getting healthy again and getting all the drugs out of your body and eating healthy and basically just restoring the natural balance of things physically. And then I started manifesting these phenomena of the underlying issues, mental, emotional issues, and the things that I had done. I felt a tremendous amount of guilt. And I was able to unburden myself of that guilt. And I did it and actually felt at that moment that I could now be in control, because you feel guilty, and a lot of people want to cast responsibility off on, and blame everybody else. But at the end of the day, you have to, and really getting them to see what their responsibility is with their situation. And you would have never convinced me of that. You could have held a gun to my head. But I went through these series of processes. And when I was able to unburden myself from that guilt, and I felt better, at the same time, I was taking responsibility for what I had done. I was like, okay, I've done those things. Now I can try to fix them. and I could move on with my life. And I actually felt like I was in more control at that moment.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Something that you shared that stands out to me is, why we get addicted in the first place. I like that you
Yeah.
said really having no purpose, no kind
Right.
of sense of, okay, what is this? What am I here for in life? And I
Right.
feel youth is at that threshold, that dangerous threshold,
Yeah.
where they're still mapping out how to get through and what to do with their lives. But I even feel as you get older, sometimes you get into this situation where, you just kind of lost. You're in transition, you lost your job or something happened. And it actually emotional. I think the emotional state of being out of control in your situation is that what really propels, I feel, the addiction. And for me, and I want to reflect a little bit, although I did some drugs when I was, a teenager, but it was not like really bad. I just smoked some cigarettes and things. My kids
Right.
hopefully not listening to that. But the addiction that I discovered later in life is really tied into this emotional state. For me, it was shopping. So when I would get into this spiral of I'm out of control in my financial situation, I'm out of control in my relationship with my husband, I'm exhausted, I do not know what to do. I'm just going to go on a shopping spree. And I'm going to go and buy things I don't really need with money that I don't have. And I put them on credit card and just say whatever later. So that is, to me, I did not even realize that I was doing that until I started doing this personal work, as you said, that can help you to uncover what is at the core of why you are doing things that that are harmful to you.
Right. Right.
And as you go through this journey, Bobby, what really have you had like a challenges? Maybe share some challenges. I know people some that are watching are struggling. Sometimes they're on this road to try to get out, but then they kind of relapse, and there's challenges in there. So maybe share some of those with us.
Well, I think that, and I hope that this answers your question, but because I run into this a lot. I mean, for me, I was smart enough to negotiate a 7-year prison sentence down to 2 weeks in jail and 6 months of probation, and plus hundreds of thousands in fines down to 2,500. But yet I was silly enough to continue to violate my probation, or I almost blew that deal. So it wasn't lack of intelligence. It was just poor decision making. And I would encourage anybody to actually do the things in life that, you go to someone that has done it and do what they did. I mean, any successful business person or career person, they're going to go get a mentor. They're going to go get a coach. These athletes that you have out there, these, Tom Brady's and Gronkowski. I'm saying that because, Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't know the players for Jacksonville, but they all have coaches. I actually listened to a podcast the other day of a guy who was a coach. He was a mental fitness coach for many pro players, but he had 2 coaches himself.
Yes.
So anybody that does anything has to go get some help. And so, everybody always thinks, oh, I can do it on my own. And my first question is, okay, that's great that you recognize you need to do something, but how are you going to do that? What are you going to do? And they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, what are your barriers you're going to have to overcome? And being able to reach out to somebody and make the sacrifice that it's going to take to get you over the hump much quicker than a lot of people. They want to undercut what it takes. They want to, I'll go to outpatient, or I'll go to a counselor, or I'll go to this, or I'll go to that. The truth is that those are great, but at the same time, what's the best percentage of chance you're going to recover? That's what we need to look at. So that's what I kind of get fired up about that, but it's
this
really,
is good.
I didn't think that way. I didn't at the time. I did not. So
this is good. I like that you make this parallel between, any successful person who wants to achieve success, whether it's athletic or, even if it's in a business, they do have mentors and coaches. They hire people to help them in the right mindset, and also accountability. I think that is so important, because when we know that we are accountable to someone and we respect that person, and that person has actually achieved what we're looking to achieve,
right,
it gives us this sense of, gosh, I better get my stuff together, right? I better do what I promised that I'm going to be doing. And that, as you said, gets you over the hump of challenges and struggles much faster.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And Bobby, the mechanics, what are the things that you feel are important for people to realize, and maybe give it from the perspective of person who is in addiction and needs help and needs, that find the way out, and maybe give it from the perspective of people that see someone that are loved, that someone that they, whether it's a child or a partner or a spouse, someone that they love, and they try to do something. What are the things that they can do? So maybe step one first, the person that is in the circumstances.
Well, I'm going to try to give this in a short answer, but there are many modalities of treatment and philosophies on treatment and addiction and things like that. But the common things the common barriers, regardless of what a treatment approach that you use, whether it be 12-step, whether it be cognitive behavioral therapy, whether it be biophysical cognitive therapies or anything like that, the common barriers are the first and foremost is cravings. There's mental and physical cravings that you have to overcome. The body is physically craves sugar. It physically craves, things. It automatically, it has an automated response system. And once your body becomes accustomed to it, there's also hormones that are released into the brain, dopamine, serotonin, and your body becomes accustomed to that and automatically craves it. It also handles toxins a certain way. And so these things need to be reversed. The effects of it causes nutritional deficiencies. So there's physical cravings and there's mental cravings. A person can see someone, they can see an object and automatically start thinking about, that drug or that substance or whatever it was. So there's mental and physical cravings and there's also depression and anxiety. Right. The condition of somebody's life could cause depression or anxiety. And also the drugs cause depression and anxiety. It's a proven fact. It's scientific. If I take cocaine for 3 days straight, when I come down, I'm going to be very depressed. I'm going to be depressed about the physical effects of the drug. I'm going to be depressed about I spent all the money and who knows what I did during that period of time. Condition of my life. So those things are also the second barrier. The third barrier is guilt. That's the underlying, you do things that you become a person you normally wouldn't be. So, or do, so those are the barriers that you have to overcome. And so I would start with, physical and do the things and lay it out to where, you can figure out how you're going to overcome those barriers. The first and foremost would be the cravings. A therapeutic step for that is to get, out of the environment that you're currently in. Right. And then start doing the things that obviously stop taking the drugs or alcohol and, getting a lot of addicts will be, their diet is very poor. Right. They usually eat a lot of sugar, which is an inflammatory. It can cause so there's a lot of things to that. Right. So again, I could go on and I could spend a whole hour on that right there alone. But those are the things that those are the barriers that you have to overcome. You have to figure out how you're going to do that. How long do you want that runway? Do you want it to be a few months? Do you want it to be a year? Obviously, the shorter, the better. So
yes, that makes sense. I like that you said it's not just the physical, it's physical, mental, and there's also emotional. Guilt is tied into the emotion. So it's really, you're looking at a holistic, your overall approach. How do you set yourself up for success? And the mechanics that you described there, are there. And what I feel as you were talking about it, I feel that a lot of people that underline or underestimate is a game addiction, or being on a social media. I feel that people are not, and I'm looking at it, and I feel that it has really escalated over the past 2 years too. That people do not realize that, oh well, it's not really drugs, or well, it's not really alcohol. But at the same time, the mechanics of it are the same in a way, because the games are structured in a way that they give you dopamine, and then you spend your time on it, and then you get a fatigue, you get a depression, and then you're tired, and then you get back to this cycle. So it's important to recognize that even though it may look maybe as not as harmful, initially, but if any addiction can become harmful, when you get into that spiral. and it can potentially lead to, then going into, addiction into alcohol and drugs as well.
That's
So
right. Yep.
as you work with youth, and I know you worked with, many young people, as you work with youth, what would be your advice or caution, maybe for those that don't realize that it's so easy to get into that trap?
Well, I always, when I used to do drug education, I always talked to kids about how you became addicted, what the definition of a drug was. I mean, how a person becomes, how drugs affect the body. I wouldn't just tell them this is cocaine and marijuana and, methamphetamine or heroin or whatever, and, give all the statistics. I would tell them this is how you become addicted. And people, and marijuana was not as big as it is right now, but it was growing. And people would say, I would talk to them about the effects of marijuana, and they would say, well, it was almost, they would disbelieve me. And I would say, look, I can't tell you just because you smoke weed, you're going to become addicted. I can tell you that if you consistently smoke weed, about 22 to 23% of you will become addicted. It's statistically proven. Right. And then I forgot, I don't remember the exact statistic, but there's a certain percentage of those that will go on to use harder drugs. And I can't sit here and tell you that just because you smoke weed, you're going to go on to do harder drugs. I can tell you that all the ones that are doing harder drugs started with, cigarettes, weed, and then they started doing every one of them. So I can tell you the progression. I mean, a heroin addict started smoking weed. Cocaine addict started smoking weed, or smoking cigarettes and then weed. So those behaviors and those processes, those decisions are non-survival decisions. So if you need to be able to break it down, is this going to be good for me or bad for me? Am I going to regret this? I had a friend of mine at his dad's funeral a couple of years ago, and we grew up together. And he said, my dad always said, never start something you think later you're going to have to quit. And I thought, man, that is so simple. I wish that would have been, that's so simple. I thought, well, yeah, I'm drinking, but one of these days, am I going to want to quit it? Probably. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't start it then.
Yes. This is good. And we have Jamie joining us. Jamie, hello. She's saying cheers from sunny and chilly Mississippi. Hi, Jamie. So good you're here. Ask us questions. Ask Bobby questions if you have any. Bobby, so you've described as the mechanics. You've described, that what it takes. You need to find a good help. You need to find people that really can help you get back over that hump faster than you trying to figure it out on your own.
Right.
How about, the roadmap? As you're looking at the roadmap, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but how do you start maybe, mapping that out, mapping that road out of personal health? So when you find yourself, okay, in your situation, you were in jail, but maybe, does it have to come to that kind of a drastic situation to start realizing that you need to get out and map out that road? Or maybe you share
some thresholds are different. I mean, and one of the things that happens with folks is that they tend, when I overcame it, this is what I did. Well, that may work for you, but your twin brother, it may not work for if they happen to have, I'm just saying it could be that close. So you can't, it's not a cookie cutter approach. The thresholds would be different. I generally find that people that are high intelligent and high energy, they go at everything full force, and they usually go right into addiction the same way. So I would, as far as the road out, being able to map it, and that is again a whole nother, spend several hours on that, but it's being able to look at the things in your life that are so basic. It's like, is this good for me or is it bad for me? Okay. Number one, I would start out with getting proper rest, getting 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep. For me, it's about 6 hours. If I can get 6-7 hours of sleep, I'm good. But and then proper diet, proper exercise. You don't want to overdo this. It's kind of especially when you're coming out of an addiction, because you can actually cause yourself, if it's what you taking off too fast. And but I would put yourself in a secure environment to where you're going to be able to, because the first time you stop, I don't know if you ever give an example of somebody who's trying to get on a diet and they stop taking sugar. The first few weeks or the first couple of weeks or a period of time there, that's really hard. But
Yes.
after they get over it, they're like, man, their whole taste, everything changes for them.
Yes.
And like my friends, I used to hang out with my friends. They were like, oh, I couldn't imagine, like, oh, they're my friends. I've known them forever. And I go back now, 20 years later, I'm like, and they haven't changed. They're still going down the same path. A lot of them, I mean, they haven't gotten far off the path. And I'm like, how did I ever, I've changed everything about my life. So, you really got to examine these things. So I hope that the roadmap is just basic fundamentals. Start with the basics first. Don't make it where you're trying to get the whole ball of wax in one, but you really have to take the sacrifice. This is a unique problem. This is a significant problem that's often taken years to develop into the current scene. So it's not going to happen overnight that you're going to be able to overcome it. It's going to take continual work. And as such as persons as yourself, I'm sure you're always looking at stuff to how can I improve, or what can I do? Or, I mastered that. Now let's go on to the next thing. It's always like, and I actually have a quote I just posted from Albert Einstein. It says, life is like riding a bicycle. You have to keep moving to keep your balance.
I love this. I love it. You kind of have to keep moving. And I like that you're pointing out it is good to look for external help. It is actually advisable to go and find a coach or mentor. It is good to have some accountability. However, it really starts within. You have to realize your power and take control of your actions, your life, your thoughts, your choices. Pave out and realize it's going to be a process. Life is the journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. In the same way that you're falling into, the pit, so to speak, then if you want to climb out of it, you have to take consistent action and step. And I hopeful that, as you're watching and you're struggling with something like that, that you find some encouragement that there is a way forward, that you find and connect. As you mentioned, you look at your environment, you have a different environment right now. You have different goals, you have different aspirations. You look at the previous environment, you're like, that's not exactly what I would want to be. And that's not the people I want to be surrounded with. So look at your environment. Maybe you need to change and reach out to people that are doing and being the way you want to be and do. And maybe as we close out, Bobby, what is your advice to parents? I mean, as a parent right now, I have a couple teenagers growing up, and I hear all these horrific stories. They're telling me their kids that are vaping in the school restrooms, and I'm like, I hope that they're good kids. I hope they know how to make choices, but I do not know what are those early signs that parents can maybe notice, and then what are the interventions? What are the things that we as parents can do? Maybe you could give us advice as we part.
Well, I have a 30-year-old son, and I'm fortunate enough to have two lives this lifetime, and I have a 30-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I've remarried 15 years happily, and my 30-year-old son, he went through. He's a very outgoing character, very good looking kid, very smart, very outgoing. Now there's a lot of things that I admired about his character and his personality, but also, his decision making needed a little bit, but he's very smart. And, but we did an intervention on him when he was 15 years old, but he was kind of forcing the hand and didn't even have a substance abuse issue. He was just going down that path. And I knew how it was going to go. And I thought, I knew about that time it started for me. And it was like, I was 20 years later before I ever, got straightened away. And why I wished I'd have been 15 and been able to go back and, get on the right path and do this. My life would be a lot different now. But so it's never too soon to intervene. I didn't even have evidence of him using drugs at the time. Turns out he had tried drugs 6 or 7 times. We found out later, but he was just making bad decisions. And we set him down, and he was, in trouble. He had gotten in trouble legally, but not great. It was headed. It was just progressively getting worse. And so I always say, look, it's never too soon, and it's not easy. It's hard. I do this for a living. And when it came to my own son, it was very difficult. So, and I always look at their friends, and one of the things I used to say about my friends when I was a kid is, my parents would point out to me about my friend's character, so-and-so's this or so-and-so that. I'm, oh, no, they're not that way. And I would defend them. And the truth is, some of my friends, when we got older and addicted to drugs, they were literally stealing from their family. or they were doing things that to their own, to other folks. And I thought, oh, they would never do that to me. Of course, they do it to their own family. You got to really judge my grandmother used to tell me, you are who you run with. Right. So if you're looking around a bunch of deadbeats, guess what? You're in that group. There's some agreement there. So I would really get parents to intervene early and really set their standards and really not waver from that. This is what we expect. But it also provide a place to where your kids can come and talk to you. They need to feel safe. You want them to come and feel safe about talking to you about things that are going on, even things that they've done. If they've done something and they shouldn't have done it, obviously help them work out a path to where they can fix it. But if you're going to, make it where they feel like they have to lie to you and they're like scared to come and talk to you, then that's the wedge. Now you can be strict at the same time, be where they know that they can come to you when they got a problem.
Yes,
right?
there's a work to be done on parent side for sure as well. Yeah. I love this, Bobby. And as far as interventions, I know that now that I can reach out to you for directions or guidance. And I know if anybody's, as you tuning in and listening and watching this, feel free to reach out to Bobby if you need some advice or just encouragement, or if you need the support. But locally, for example, if how do I find help? Where I know there's an array of programs, but what is my first resource? I guess would go online and look up for some resources, or what would you recommend doing?
Well, you can always call me. I mean, you can go to my website at newmaninterventions.com. That's NEWMAN interventions.com, or call us at 866-989-4499. And, we'll be glad to direct you any way we can. There's a lot of, different types of programs that you can get into as far as, and just seeking common advice. You can definitely give us a call and just ask for Bobby Newman. There's going to be other people answer my phone. Just say, hey, I heard Bobby on a podcast and, I have some questions about my son or daughter or need some help. And, I'd like to talk to them, and they'll direct you to me, and then I'll be glad to talk to you and answer any questions, and I'll provide whatever specifically resources that you need.
This is very helpful, Bobby. Thank you so much. I do think it is something that you look around and you kind of think that, well, it's not going to come my way, or it's not going to happen, with me, but you just never know. And I like that you gave an example and shared your son's story and how you decided to do an intervention with him before he got into a very, gloomy, so to speak, circumstances. That as parents, we can recognize that, we live with the kids, we know them. So if you see that there may be something that you feel are on the dangerous side, take an action and at least get a resources, at least have a conversation. I think as parents, we can and must take action to protect our kids, because sometimes it's just, they're still growing, even though they're in the teenage years, they're still growing and developing. And if they get into an influence that is going to drag them down the path, it's right. You're going to have to step in and hopefully on time, and hopefully find a way how to be encouraging, and create safe environment for them to be able to receive the help they need.
Right. And, one of the things that I've have to constantly be on watch for, because, it is try to set a good example across the board for your kids. It's one thing to be there for them, and but it's quite another. I mean, I have to really, your kids are going to emulate what you do. They are, yes. So one of the very important is to set a good example constantly. I mean, they're watching you, whether yes. you think they are or not. So
it's true. Yeah. And I can share my experience this morning. Yeah. Things went wacky, and I lost my cool. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's not exactly the mom I wanted to be. So before, maybe I would brush it off the rug and say, well, I had a bad time, Yeah. But now I'm like, well, I really have to apologize to my son that I lost my cool. And when he comes back from school, I have to apologize to repair that relationship. So right. It is constant growth as a parent, I feel we do make mistakes, and there's guilt. Like you mentioned, guilt is huge. You do something, or you say something, or you're just not in the best mood, or don't have energy. You have a guilt. Let go of the guilt. Take control. Apologize. Repair. Restore relationship with those that you love the most. Our families I feel, are the most important people in our lives. So go out of your way to be able to repair that. And I think it's a learning process for us as parents as well, as we grow as parents, and as we help our children grow and mature. I feel it's the best transformational school right there in your family there, right?
No, that's a great thing, because I have to do that too. I mean, none of us are perfect, and there was only one of us that was perfect, and it's definitely not me. And so, there's times that I've lost it. You get tired or hungry, and you're catching a bad moment. Things happen, and you just have to go back and try to gain some understanding from your, just say, hey, you know what? Yesterday or this morning or whatever. And I do that all the time. I have to go back and how do I want him to feel about that? I want him to, so it's constantly a learning process for sure. So, and by the way, I want to go back a little bit, and I have drug education programs that I work with. I have other counselors. I have people that are, so I've got a host of people that I'm kind of networked with that, provide services of one type or another. So
that's great. That's great resource, Bobby. And Jamie saying, great advice, Bobby. This is wonderful information, especially around the holidays, which can be tough for some.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much, Bobby, for coming, sharing your journey, sharing the insights. I feel we all need to realize that even though we feel out of control, we still have some kind of control, and we still can control our attitude. We still can control our intentions. Even though you live in a crazy circumstances, make the choice to reclaim that right of yours to say, I can choose differently. I can choose different attitude. I can give myself permission to start over again. I can choose to let go of the guilt and stop beating myself up and get myself on a different path. And Bobby, I think that what you shared today with us is really encouraging, down to earth. It's not like, we are heroes or whatnot. We are, as you said, we're imperfect people living imperfect life. We can all sleep and down and fall down, but we don't have to lay there. We can get up and get going. So I appreciate you coming today and sharing your story and encouragement with us, Bobby.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I'll talk to you sometime soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Wow, I think it was encouraging. I feel it was really good, because when we hear the stories, and raise your hand if you know someone that whether you're friends or someone else in your life that they're addicted and they're struggling. I know a few people that are having hard time, and it's like, how do you help? How do you find a way? If this is your immediate family, especially kids, I feel we do have ways to help, at least find resources like Bobby. I would say, if nothing else, connect with him on LinkedIn, find him. So that way, when things happen, or someone, or maybe your friend is having challenges with the kids, you can refer them to Bobby and say, hey, there is this gentleman that has overcome addictions. And when that kind of resource, I feel it is very helpful to just know that there are people out there that are doing great job and great work like Bobby. It's his mission now. He's actually a recruiter by life. I didn't get to have him talk about that, but he's recruiting. He's in the recruitment career by life, and by night he is helping people overcome addiction. Jamie, thank you so much for joining in today, and thank you too for listening and participating. It's really encouraging. So, my friends, let's notice as we're coming into this season of celebration, happiness, celebrating holidays, a new year, a new beginning, celebrating Christmas for those of you that you do. Let's set our intentions and make this a good time, a time of bonding, a time of reflection, a time where we can extend support that to those that maybe don't realize they need support. And I hope this has added value to you, my friend. I encourage you, keep powering unique you, and I will see you again next week.